Yeah, Kevin, I was going to ask about Shedeur too. So just wondering, where do you feel like he has shown the most growth since he first stepped on that field against the Ravens that day?
Yeah, I wouldn't get into specifics, Mary Kay, other than to say, we work very hard in this building on player development at all positions. And for quarterbacks, like we've talked about all season long, there's always going to be ups and downs. And we just have to learn from each one of these opportunities. So,
Feels that Kevin Stefanski wasn't ready to draft Shedeur Sanders, and then upon drafting him, he didn't put a plan in place to handle the person. You have to understand with Shedeur Sanders is going to come more media attention, more scrutiny. He's going to be treated unlike anything else in that locker room or anything else we see in the league based on his position.
Why wouldn't you, just to see if it does anything to the offense, give him an opportunity to go in there and play?
yeah, obviously my focus is where we are right now, Mary Kay. That's not my focus.
Okay.
That if you just criticize everything the young man does, there's going to be people that gravitate to that because they don't want to see him succeed.
Yeah. The Cleveland Browns just shocked the NFL world. A team that entered Sunday with a pitiful 4 wins somehow found a way to upset the Pittsburgh Steelers, their bitter division rivals fighting for playoff positioning. This should have been a coronation moment, a celebration, a chance for Kevin Stefanski to stand at that podium and declare to the world, our rookie quarterback just delivered when it mattered most. Instead, we got another masterclass in passive-aggressive coaching, another vague, corporate, emotionless response that made it crystal clear Kevin Stefanski doesn't believe in Shedeur Sanders. And Ryan Clark, the former NFL safety and current media analyst, just went nuclear on Stefanski for his handling of the situation. This isn't just about one press conference. This is about a head coach who seems fundamentally incapable of developing quarterbacks. This is about a 2-time Coach of the Year who has cycled through 13 different signal callers since 2020 and hasn't found a single one that works in his system. This is about the systematic destruction of a young quarterback's confidence before he even has a chance to establish himself in this league. And Ryan Clark has had enough of watching it happen. Let's set the scene. The Browns just beat the Steelers. Shedeur Sanders, a 5th-round rookie who wasn't supposed to be starting this season, just orchestrated a victory against a playoff-contending team. The kind of win that could be a building block, the kind of performance that could give a young quarterback momentum heading into the offseason. Kevin Stefanski takes the podium. The media is waiting. The questions start flying about Shedeur's performance. And what does Stefanski lead with?
Yeah, I think the big message for all players, and definitely at the quarterback position, is to learn from every single play. There are plays where you have to tip the cap to the defense and recognize they're in the right coverage or they made a play. There's other times where you let it rip and you see the right coverage and you're playing on time. So I just think there's so much to learn from. Obviously, the 2 giveaways, we can learn from both of those plays.
Read that carefully. After a win, not a loss, a win, Stefanski immediately pivots to talking about giveaways and learning opportunities. He's talking about mistakes. He's focusing on what went wrong instead of what went right. He's treating this victory like it's some kind of teaching moment instead of a legitimate accomplishment. This is textbook bad coaching. This is how you destroy a young quarterback's confidence. This is how you create an environment where players are so afraid of making mistakes that they stop taking chances altogether. And Ryan Clark sees right through it. Clark didn't hold back. He called out Stefanski's entire approach, making it abundantly clear that the Browns head coach never wanted Shedeur Sanders in the first place and has no real plan for developing him into anything meaningful.
Feels that Kevin Stefanski wasn't ready to draft Shedeur Sanders, and then upon drafting him, he didn't put a plan in place to handle the person. You have to understand with Shedeur Sanders is going to come more media attention, more scrutiny. He's going to be treated unlike anything else in that locker room or anything else we see in the league based on his position.
This is the key point. Stefanski wasn't prepared for what comes with Shedeur Sanders, not just the player, but the person. The media circus, the scrutiny, the fact that he's Deion Sanders' son and therefore operates under a different set of expectations than your typical 5th-round developmental prospect. You knew this when you drafted him, Kevin. You knew his last name would bring attention. You knew cameras would follow him. You knew fans would have opinions. So why are you acting like you're surprised by it? Why haven't you developed a coherent strategy for handling it? The answer is simple. Stefanski never wanted him. The front office forced Shedeur on him, and now he's subtly, or maybe not so subtly, sabotaging the kid's development because he never believed in him from the start. Clark's most damning statement? The ultimatum.
It's time to part ways. It's time to trade him. It's time to get him out of your locker room because clearly your plan for development is not to develop Shedeur Sanders as a future starter of your team, and too much comes with him if you don't see that sort of plan for him.
Think about what Clark is saying here. He's essentially arguing that if Stefanski can't commit to Shedeur as the future, then the most humane thing to do is get him out. Trade him to a team that will actually develop him. Send him somewhere with a coaching staff that believes in him, because keeping him in Cleveland under these circumstances is borderline cruel. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody in Cleveland wants to acknowledge. Kevin Stefanski has a quarterback problem. Not a "we haven't found the right guy yet" problem, a "nobody succeeds in this system" problem. Since 2020, Stefanski has gone through 13 different quarterbacks. 13! Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, Nick Mullins, Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, P.J. Walker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Jeff Driscoll, Joshua Dobbs, Tyler Huntley, Jameis Winston, Kenny Pickett, and now Shedeur Sanders. That's not a personnel issue. That's a system issue. And you know what's even more damning? The quarterbacks who leave Cleveland often look better elsewhere. Baker Mayfield is thriving in Tampa Bay. Joe Flacco had a resurgence before Stefanski shipped him out. These guys aren't broken players. They're players broken by the system.
At some point in time, ain't it about you? Ain't it about your offensive coordinator? Ain't it about what y'all are bringing to the table? Because if no one seems to work for you as an offensive mind at the quarterback position, how can I look at Shedeur Sanders? I might have to look at you and say, you might be the reason Shedeur Sanders is looking the way he's looking.
Exactly. At some point, you have to stop blaming the quarterbacks and start examining the coach. When you've cycled through 13 different signal callers and none of them have succeeded, the common denominator isn't the players, it's you. Kevin Stefanski came to Cleveland as an offensive coordinator. That was his calling card. That was supposed to be his specialty. And yet, 5 years into his tenure, the Browns' offense is a disaster. Dead last in yards per play, dead last in total QBR, 30th in yards per game, 29th in offensive points per game. These aren't just bad numbers, these are historically bad numbers, and they're happening under the watch of a guy who's supposed to be an offensive guru. What makes Stefanski's handling of Shedeur even more frustrating is his refusal to give specific answers about the quarterback's development. When reporters ask legitimate questions about what Shedeur is improving on or what the coaching staff is working on with him, Stefanski retreats into corporate speak.
Yeah, I wouldn't get into specifics, Mary Kay, other than to say, we work very hard in this building on player development at all positions. And for quarterbacks, like we've talked about all season long, there's always going to be ups and downs. And we just have to learn from each one of these opportunities. So
I wouldn't get into specifics. That right there is the problem. You're the head coach. You're supposed to have specifics. You're supposed to be able to articulate exactly what your quarterback needs to work on. Footwork, ball placement, pre-snap reads, decision-making under pressure. Instead, we get vague platitudes about player development and learning opportunities. That's not coaching. That's deflecting. That's a man who either doesn't have a plan or doesn't want to share it because he knows it would expose how unprepared he is for this situation. Ryan Clark nailed it when he said Stefanski needs to have answers prepared. When you draft a player like Shedeur Sanders, someone who comes with built-in media attention, you better have coherent, specific responses ready. You better be able to explain your development plan. You better be able to point to concrete areas of improvement.
The fact that Stefanski can't or won't do that speaks volumes about his lack of preparation. Let's go back to the Steelers game for a second. because this wasn't just any win. This was a divisional rivalry game. This was against a playoff contending team. This was the kind of statement victory that could have galvanized the entire organization heading into next season. And Shedeur Sanders, despite his flaws, put the team in position to win. Sure, he threw some questionable passes. Yes, there were giveaways, but he also made plays when it mattered. He showed resilience. He demonstrated the ability to bounce back from mistakes and lead the team to victory. That deserves recognition. That deserves credit. Not qualified praise with a dozen caveats, not immediate pivoting to what went wrong, just straight-up acknowledgement our rookie quarterback helped us win a big game. But Stefanski couldn't even give him that. Instead, when asked about Carson's injury and his effort fighting through it, Stefanski was effusive with his praise.
Yeah, I just think, I watched it during the game and making plays and pushing himself and trying to get loose in between series and that type of thing. And, just it's a emblematic of the effort out there. And I appreciate that. And I think it speaks well about him. It speaks to his teammates as well.
Notice the difference? When talking about another player fighting through injury, Stefanski uses words like emblematic and appreciate and talks about how it speaks well about the player. He's praising him. He's giving him credit. But when asked about his rookie quarterback who just won a game, we need to learn from the giveaways. The double standard is glaring, and it's exactly what Ryan Clark is calling out. Here's what nobody's really talking about: the psychological toll this takes on a young quarterback. Shedeur Sanders is 22 years old. He's trying to establish himself in the most difficult position in professional sports. He's dealing with the pressure of being Deion's son. He's navigating the media circus that comes with that name. And on top of all that, he's playing for a head coach who seemingly can't bring himself to give him genuine praise. That wears on you. That creates doubt. That makes you second-guess everything you do on the field, because you know that no matter how well you play, your coach is going to find something negative to highlight. And that's how you ruin young quarterbacks. Not through bad scheme or poor play calling, though Cleveland has plenty of that too, but through systematic erosion of confidence, through making players feel like they're never good enough no matter what they accomplish. Ryan Clark understands this. That's why his take is so passionate. That's why he's essentially begging the Browns to either commit to Shedeur or let him go somewhere else, because keeping him in this toxic environment isn't fair to anyone, not the player, not the team, not the fans. So here's where we are. The Browns have one game left in the season. Shedeur Sanders gets one more start to showcase what he can do. Kevin Stefanski's job status is unclear. There are questions about whether he'll even be back next year, and nobody seems to know what the plan is for the most important position in football. Does Cleveland believe Shedeur is the future? Are they committed to building around him? Will they give him a full offseason as the starter and let him develop with the first-team offense? Or are they already looking toward the 2026 draft, where they have 2 first-round picks and could potentially select a quarterback they actually want? These are questions that should have clear answers, but in Cleveland, nothing is ever clear. Nothing is ever straightforward, and that ambiguity is killing this organization's ability to build something sustainable. Ryan Clark's message is simple: figure it out, make a decision. Either commit to Shedeur Sanders as your quarterback of the future and give him the support he needs to succeed, or trade him to a team that will. But don't keep him in limbo. Don't waste another year of his development because your head coach can't get out of his own way. This story isn't really about one press conference. It's not even really about one game against the Steelers. It's about a pattern, a disturbing, consistent pattern of a head coach who cannot develop quarterbacks, who cannot give credit when it's deserved, who cannot articulate a clear vision for the most important position in the sport. Kevin Stefanski is a 2-time Coach of the Year. He'll probably get another job if Cleveland moves on from him, but his legacy in Cleveland will be defined by one glaring failure: an inability to find and develop a franchise quarterback despite having 5 years and 13 different options to work with. Shedeur Sanders deserves better. The Browns fans deserve better. And if Stefanski can't provide that, then Ryan Clark is absolutely right. It's time for a change, because right now, nobody's winning. Not the coach, not the quarterback, and definitely not the organization. The clock is ticking, 1 game left, and the entire future of the Cleveland Browns franchise hangs in the balance. Will Kevin Stefanski finally give Shedeur Sanders the credit he deserves, or will this just be another chapter in Cleveland's never-ending quarterback nightmare? We're about to find out.